Good afternoon. Okay, we're doing well. Cool. One more time, a bit more energy. Good afternoon. Amazing. Cool. So today is a celebration. So I'm loving those round of applause. Let's keep them going because I've got a few things to say to you today. So before I dive in, I do want to show honor to President, Provost, and the Dean, and all of the Hult staff for thinking of me again, and for inviting me to deliver this commencement speech today. So since 2024, I've actually also been serving all of you in some capacity as an advisory board member here at Hult. So this means I don't just stand here as a guest today, I'm also part of this community. And I can say with certainty, every single time we've had those meetings, it's been focused on one thing, and that one thing is how you can go out as graduates and make an impact that truly matters. So it wasn't long ago that I was in your position. I'm only 28, so not too old. But I was in 2022, after a year's delay, graduating with an integrated master's in mechanical engineering and programming from UCL, which was just down the road. And like many of you today, I was asking myself that big question, what's next? All right, and I think it's been mentioned earlier on today. So whilst I stand up here, I want you to see me as a unofficial big brother or little brother, depending upon how old you are, and just sharing, what I've kind of picked up along the way. So the majority of you have started your program in 2022, which means many of you, whether in high school or in college, had your years disrupted, and you arrived here, I would say, already resilient in some ways. And you've proven it by pitching startups, tackling social challenges, showing what it means to be entrepreneurial in spirit, whatever the field is that you decided to go into. And this graduating class represents one of the most international cohorts. I think they've mentioned it already. People from all around the world, whether it's Italy, Germany, France, India, Norway, US. Together, I think those countries alone make up over 50% of this graduating class. Anyone here from Nigeria today? Look at that, I love that. Okay, cool. The rest of you, it's inclusive, but I can't say everything. Nigerians are very proud, but I love all of you the same way. So together, you've shown that power of inclusion, resilience, and impact. And they're not just words, but very much lived values as well. And you've also seen something that no class before you has ever had. And that, I think, as was mentioned earlier by Matt, was having AI as your co-pilot, or in some cases, your co-founder. What once took, I was speaking to someone recently, what once took them 5 people, to actually work on, now just takes them 1, and they can work on that on their own. And that's an opportunity, but it's also pressure. And because of that, the world won't necessarily wait for you to be ready. So I'll kind of speak to my story, and hopefully you can pick up some gems from that, but today is all about you. So I know something about opportunity and about what it means when opportunity feels far away as well. So I grew up in one of the best places in London. I'm not going to get you to guess because it's a fact, and it's Peckham. Anyone been to Peckham? Yeah, okay, cool. You should say that with a bit more proudness. But many people know Peckham now for what it is in terms of rooftop bars, trendy coffee shops. But back when I was growing up, it was a place of poverty, violence, and very much a concrete jungle. And we were surrounded by all the vices that you can imagine, whether it be drug abuse, alcohol abuse, gang culture, and injustice. And when I was growing up in Peckham at home, it was my mum, myself, and my brother, Kenny, who was 4 years older than me. And by the age of 14, my brother was forcibly imprisoned after his 18th birthday for murder and 5 other charges. 2 of his friends, at the time that I knew very well, were sentenced to 30 years, which is, of course, older than many of us here today. And the real cause of this, if you ask me, growing up in that environment, was poverty. Because what I saw was a lack of access to opportunities, which often led to small things happening. Like in my case, seeing bikes left in my friend's garden to rust. And at that point, I really saw this as an opportunity. And this is going to come up a lot in terms of opportunity. But I saw it as an opportunity to really take it upon myself to fix these bikes. So I went from 2 wheels racing around Peckham car park, which is now called Peckham Levels, eventually to 4 wheels. I started go-karting. It wasn't too long until that go-karting track also closed down. And I said, if I can't race and be inside of the car, then I'll work outside of the car and work to build it. And that was my motivation up until that point. But my dream was to kind of combine all of these different interests. Like many of you, you've got so many different interests as you've come here today. And it was really, how can I, do that in the most meaningful way? And at that point, because I was fairly young, I decided to take engineering as a GCSE and get as many tools into my toolbox that I could. And I ultimately wanted to solve problems for people. And that's what problem solving is really about. And since then, I've described myself, as I was introduced, as a humanitarian engineer on a mission to tackle the most pressing problems that center people and the planet in some meaningful way. So right now, I do that in 3 ways. The first one actually started out in 2015. I realized that most of my friends were being kicked out of school and never really had access to the opportunities that I eventually started to get. So I saw that as a problem yet again, and I knew that in some way I needed to keep the ladder down. So at that point, I met up with my good friend at the time, and we bumped into each other actually in Peckham Burger King. Again, Peckham come up again. It's a special place. And eventually that led to us saying, how can we solve this problem? And people asking the question, what's the motive? Which just means, what is there to do today? And then we built an app to begin with. That was over 10 years ago. We didn't know how to build apps. We didn't know how to do anything. And then over time, we started delivering programs to support over 3,000 to 4,000 young people each year to get into STEM jobs and beyond and build a multi-million-pound company off the back of it. And that was through one single opportunity. And then through that process and that time, we were kind of able to get recognized through people like Idris Elba, Beyonce, the Royals, to name a few. And from the second hat that I wear, it came after graduating, so this is very relevant to every single one of you. And interning at places like Google, McKinsey, Rolls-Royce, where again, I spotted problems. So at Rolls-Royce, when I went there, it was very simple. Many people just take on a few different projects, and I said, what hasn't been worked on over the years? What have people actually been neglecting? And I saw a component that hadn't been touched for over 40 years, and I asked if I could work on that. And I redesigned the component in their jet engines and saved them over £50 million as a result in less than 10 weeks. And that same component, very small component, is now in all of their Rolls-Royce engines around the world. So again, a very, very small opportunity. And someone by the name of Lewis Hamilton, anyone heard of him? Yeah? So he sent me an email, and that point, I thought it was spam. I was like, what is going on? And he reached out because he had heard about my work at Motives and at Rolls-Royce, and he wanted me to join what was then called the board of the Hamilton Commission. And from that, I created an opportunity. Yet again, I knew that he was setting up a racing team, so I gave a compelling pitch. And then that eventually led to me actually racing around the world, starting off as a junior engineer, then becoming a performance engineer, and then soon after becoming a race engineer responsible for all the engineering duties as part of this car. What's very important in this process that I didn't mention is when I was going through that degree and I applied for something called Formula Student. So that is the typical way that you actually get into motorsport. For me, I got rejected from doing that. So that motorsport dream is something that I almost gave up on. And it wasn't something that I necessarily thought was possible. And sometimes you're going to get one opportunity that doesn't necessarily look like it's going to take you to where you need to go to, but because you're available and you're doing all these other things in the process, somebody recognizes you and gives you another one. So you never know really who's going to sponsor you. And through that point, it was racing all around the world in many remote locations affected by climate change. Think of places like Greenland, Senegal, Chile, all around the world, in order to raise awareness for what you could do with this electric SUV superimposed on all of these different problems. And lastly, the third hat that I've been wearing over this time is still trying to see how I can really use my voice as an advocate for everyone in this room, but also for those people that voice is often unheard. So that is what has led me to kind of be in a lot of these rooms, because my brother always used to say, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. All right, so how do we actually make sure that we're here making decisions and people aren't just making decisions for us? So that led me to not just spend time on the board of the Hamilton Commission. I've recently become the vice chair of the Co-op Foundation. And again, giving out and disbursing millions of pounds to different young people working on great causes across the UK, because that's essentially what it's about. It's about making an impact. So for me, it started off with a bike, and at every turn, it was about leveraging opportunities, whatever the opportunity looked like. So here's what I've learned about opportunities. The first, two pieces of advice, similar to Ian, I would say. The first one is fill your cup and let it overflow. And what do I mean by that? In simple terms, is stay close to people and the places and ideas that give you energy. That's why until now, I'm still in Peckham. I still love going there because it keeps that fire in my belly and it keeps me humble. Because those are where you'll spot opportunities first. There's always an opportunity where you are right now. You don't have to go that far. You just have to understand your environment. And then, as soon as you've done that, it's about using your skills. All these skills that you picked up, over the last 3 years or so, how can you actually use that, those skills and creativity to serve others? Because opportunity actually multiplies when you share it. It was often through starting something and deciding, how can I support people on the journey, and sharing what I've learned that allowed me to accelerate my understanding of that problem and make a deeper impact at the same time. So it's truly a win-win when you actually decide to serve. And then the second thing I would say is persevere by picking up multiple stones. So this for me is a bit more unconventional. Many of you have come across the story of David and Goliath, right? In some way or another. And you often heard the story that he picked up a stone, threw it at Goliath, and he fell down. What many people don't read, because we often don't read the subtext, is that he actually didn't just pick up one stone. He picked up 5, all right? Because he was ready to try again if the first stone didn't work. And you'll meet many Goliaths on your journey in some way or another, and you're going to have to go again and again, even until this very day, as I stand before you. When we apply for whatever it may be, we may do 6 applications. You might get rejected from the majority of them. All you need is one to work, and people will speak about the one, all right? And this is where it connects to you, all of you Hult graduates today. So some of you have studied finance, marketing, entrepreneurship, international business, management, economics, you name it. And you'll be the ones turning some vision of some sort into reality. So whatever your degree, don't really see it as a subject. See it as a set of tools, just as me when I'm thinking of it as a toolbox. Because tools are meant to be used, and whether that's to build, to serve, and to create impact. And the last thing that I would say on that point is, remember, you're not just pursuing dreams for yourself. Pursuing dreams for yourself isn't enough. Hult's purpose is much bigger than that, and that's a better future for all. So that means whatever job you take, whatever city you move to, whatever venture you decide to start, carry that responsibility with you. And for graduates, I've got a little exercise for you. I want you to just stop. Breathe. I like that. You're doing well. Look around. Look at to the side, your families, friends, upper stores, depending upon where they are. They're your biggest fans. They've sacrificed. They've invested in you. They've believed in you. This is their victory too. And they didn't sacrifice for you to play small. So here's my challenge for you today. Most people will settle. Most people will wait for the perfect moment. Most people will let opportunities pass. Don't be like most people. Your degree is not your ceiling. It's your foundation. Your first job is not your destiny. It's your launch pad. And as I mentioned, you're going to have to get so many different rejections and failures along the way. And as we know, going into this graduate market, scary scene sometimes, all right? That's the honest truth. But the truth is, however it starts, that does not define where you're going to go after. When I was graduating, I actually didn't know exactly what I was going to do. All I knew is I wanted to spin something out and make an impact. And I think it's worked out pretty okay, all right? So opportunities don't knock, they whisper. So pay attention. And don't wait until you feel ready, because nobody's ever feels ready. So class of 2025, your degree proves what you can learn. Now we need you to prove what you can build. Prove that you can lead. Prove that you can serve. The world doesn't just need more graduates, believe it or not. What it actually needs is more problem solvers. It needs people that build bridges, people that actually lead to create an impact that matters. So don't wait for permission, and don't wait for the perfect conditions, and don't wait for someday. This is your moment, and the world needs you in it. So congratulations, class of 2025. God bless you, and the marathon continues.